I think we should compliment each other every day. Absolutely, without fail, compliment your spouse every day. You said finding new ways to compliment them every day. There's 365 days a year. There are 27 years in our marriage. Do you know how many times creatively I'd have? So I changed it to this. Find new ways to compliment each other regularly.
Okay, so we go back to number 20, which is, you're right. Number 21, I was wrong.
In all of the good times and even the trials, through tears and through laughter, yeah, I know that I'll smile when I think of you. Smile for the things you do. Smile, God gave me you. You are the reason I smile. Yeah.
This is Behind Our Smiles.
Pursuing connection.
And finding joy.
Even in the struggle.
Welcome back to another episode of the Behind Our Smiles podcast. We are Joe and Tara Buchanan. We're so glad to be hanging out with you.
We are really excited to be here today, and it's kind of a special day.
Yeah, well, a special week. Special month.
Yes,
yeah.
We are celebrating our anniversary.
Yeah, 27 years, just like that.
I tell you.
Went fast. And I know with our kids, it's not a birthday or even a birth week, it's a birth month. So I was wondering, for 27 years, if we could just celebrate the whole month of June.
Let's go. Let's go. And well, the even better part of that is at the end of the month, our son's getting married and starting year zero. So we'll be celebrating anniversaries and weddings all in the same month.
And we'll always have a 27-year head start.
That's right. So today we are going to celebrate our anniversary with an anniversary-style episode, whatever that means. So we have to do Make Me Smile. What makes you smile when you think about your husband and wife? And we do this every week, and we have some great messages. But I thought, well, since it's our anniversary and we're celebrating our marriage this month, maybe we need to just, do it ourselves and share what makes you smile about me, Joe.
So, you're asking me.
Yeah, I think we got to just if we're asking our listeners to share, I guess we should probably share too.
But isn't there like 141 episodes where I've shared about what makes me smile?
Some of it makes you smile, and some of it's what makes you cry or makes you mad.
So I think initially if someone were to ask me, hey, Joe, what makes you smile about tarot? I would say every time that I come into the house when I've been away, you always meet me with just a joyful greeting. You're always glad to see me. That makes me smile. Your smile makes me smile. It's one of my absolute favorite things about you. And the way you interact with our kids. It's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. So what makes me smile when I think about you? And again, I have many, many things I've shared and written and talked about in the podcast, but it is something, there is still new things I discover each day. And I think that's a fun thing about marriage as well. It's not just like there's a list of things that make me smile about you and that book is closed. I feel like every day there's something new to appreciate about you.
Is it that the things that used to make you smile? I'm just kidding. Anyway,
they're not relevant anymore.
or they don't make me smile anymore.
Exactly. Next chapter. So what makes me smile about you is also as well that how well you are parenting our kids. And we're, again, not the same as it was 20 years ago when our kids were either non-existent or not at the same ages, but seeing you grow as a father, especially in this stage of parenting that we're at, just makes me smile so big. And I've really seen you be willing to grow in so many different areas. There's you're not the man I married 27 years ago. You are a newer, improved version. And I'm glad I'm here to enjoy it.
What did you say to was it our daughter you were talking to recently?
He's an upgraded version.
No, you said don't look for your dad because he's 27 years in the making or something.
Well, we're talking about
like,
adult children.
Don't look for someone that's as,
Yeah, when you have adult children or they're, choosing a spouse, they often pick someone like their father or mother if that's a good example. I'm like, your dad's a great example of a husband, but he's 27 years in the making. He wasn't necessarily this amazing for so long.
You.
Oh wait, that's really bad to say.
Did you say that live?
No, he was not.
Podcast?
Not this amazing. He was not as refined. He was not as refined and.
I'm going to let you in real time dig your way out of that one.
How would you say it about me?
I would say that you were amazing when I married you, but you have matured into quite the woman of God.
And I wasn't back then.
All right, so we're going to spend this whole episode just digging ourselves out.
You were always amazing, but there's a different kind of amazing. God is good, just what you said.
Well, I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and we were just talking about this idea that we made these decisions, a lifelong decision when we were just kids, really. And little did we know. And I think looking back on it, I wasn't necessarily looking 20 years down the road. I was really just wanting to have a successful first year. Or,
1 year at a time. That's
yes.
true, though. You have to take it 1 year at a time. So, in light of our anniversary, we're looking
Although
back.
I will say this
Yes.
before to interrupt you rudely, I was committed to the lifetime.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
wasn't looking what we were going to be like 27
You don't
years.
commit 1 year at a time. Right. But you
Right.
say, I will work on what I need to work on
Yes.
this year
Yeah.
and tackle next year's problems when they arise.
Because they always arise.
There's always
Yes.
new things to appreciate and new problems to tackle. So, in light of our anniversary, I thought we can just do like not a wedding, but a marriage tips, like our favorite
Oh,
tips.
you're talking about another list.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at lists.
I love lists.
So this is like a very much like a flyover version. And plus,
Yeah.
like with our son getting married this month, there is that element over the past few months of their engagement, sharing those things. Like, okay, these are the things we want to tell someone who's just getting married. These are the things we wish we really would have honed in on maybe in our marriage. And we did some of these things well and some not so well, but those things are kind of on our heart right now. Like, okay, what is it that we think is important, and what would we tell someone getting married? And there's a lot. So 27 is a lot. So really, it's like probably overkill for anybody who really wants some good advice. But we're going to
Yeah,
overkill
I
it
started
anyway.
to feel overwhelmed at number
Someone's
5 on the list.
I'm working on
but-
2 things at a time. But
But here's the thing. So these are things that we got right. These are some things that we wanted to get right. And these are some things that we're still learning.
some things that are 27 years in the making.
Right. 27 years in the making. That's
Yeah.
great.
So you kind of know what you want to get, but you're not sure. So yeah, this is like an intense list. And if we're ever married for 50 years and they make a list of 50 things, it'll be even more overwhelming.
Yes.
So not to overwhelm you, but we're going to go through our favorite 27.
Yeah, these are things
Tips.
that I would say did contribute or do contribute to the success of
Successful,
of marriage.
happy,
Yeah.
and long-lasting
And as I
marriage.
went through this list, I really, you put together a great list, Tara. And so, I mean, I agree with all of these things.
I
But
hope so.
Some of these things, I'm like, okay, that was pretty easy. But other of these things, I'm like, no, I'm still working at
Well,
that.
I'm glad you at
That's
least
gonna
agreed
take a
that they're
while.
important versus like, that's not important.
No, but they do. And as the more that I can apply these things to our marriage, I think the better our marriage will get.
And so even though we're going really quickly through these and kind of a quick flyover, many of these things we have discussed in more depth over the podcast episodes. So
Yeah.
it's not like we've never gone there. Just today we're kind of doing a high level flyover. So
we could
Number
do
one.
141.
here
No,
we
just
go.
kidding.
We got it all day, and I'm sure our listeners do
All
too.
right, so 27 thoughts or things. What do
Yeah,
you call
20
these?
I don't
27
know, tips, lessons,
ideas?
thoughts.
Yeah. Okay.
Advice.
What was number 1?
What? Okay, so center your marriage on God or on the foundation of your faith in Jesus. And that means different things to different people. But for me, it means we serve him first.
Yeah.
And his purpose is first in our life versus like serving each other first or serving ourselves first. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, same thing. Making God first.
Ditto? You just ditto me?
Well, I think that if that one wasn't on the list, I don't think we have a successful marriage.
Okay.
So, in my opinion. All right, number 2 is give each other grace.
That's a
And I
hard
think
one.
the thing I would add to that is every day.
Yes, I don't think you realize when you first get married how much grace is necessary, and not just for the other person, but for yourself. So grace, 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 and then a little bit more grace
Yeah.
is what I would tell someone. 3 is learn about each other. And I've been saying this to our son quite a bit. Learning about your husband or your wife, to a newly married couple really does take a long, long, long lifetime. You're not going to know everything right away. That's what's fun.
Yeah.
What do you think?
You actually put in the notes it takes forever.
Oh, forever.
That's
That
even
sounds
longer than
kind
a
of scary
lifetime,
almost.
yeah.
Like,
But it's true.
never done.
You said earlier you're discovering new things, and I think that's an important part about a healthy marriage is to continue toward discovery. So number 4 is tell them. They won't know unless you tell them. I think in the beginning of our marriage, we like to assume the other person could read minds, and that
well, and that learning part too. Obviously, you can learn a lot about your spouse from watching and listening for sure. But there are certain things that if you don't tell your spouse these things, they won't know. They can't learn about you unless you tell them. So just tell them. That's the good stuff, hopefully. But number 5, say I love you as much as humanly possible.
that's a big one. And I might say it too much. I'm not sure. But I've had friends come over and they'll be like, man, you tell your wife you love her a lot. But I feel like I just want you to know.
I mean, it's a big deal. You don't want to make
Yeah.
it feel like it's flippant, but in our marriage situation, it is a given, but we'd like to say that as often as humanly possible. It always feels good to hear. even if it is a quick at the end of a phone call, love you. I think it's good and it's wonderful, and say it a lot.
And I try to always say I love you. I try not to say love you, right?
Ooh.
Because that to me feels more flippant.
Yes.
I love you.
I'm talking about really if
yeah.
you're about to hang up on me and I have like a half a second to say
So you
something.
might get I love.
Love you.
I love.
Love you. I
But
think
you might miss
we'll
the
give you
you.
grace, Joe. Give me
All right.
grace if I don't say I love you.
All right,
Okay.
number 6, be the first to say I'm sorry, and will you forgive me? That's a big one. That's not always easy. And I still am mastering that one. It's going to take me a while.
Almost all the marriage tips, like marriage advice, will say that. And everyone knows it's true, but like,
It's really easy
It's
to
just-
do when I'm not upset with you.
yes, I'm so sorry, hon.
Yes.
But be willing to say the first. It is, because usually someone's got to be mature enough to just say you're sorry. So on the flip side of that, number 7, be willing to forgive. And
Key
forgive.
ingredient.
And forgive.
Key ingredient to a healthy marriage.
And forgiveness. And like that, I think we kind of talk about the posture of forgiveness. The posture of saying, being willing to forgive, understanding, again, what we've been forgiven from, understanding the true nature of grace and forgiveness. And again, it might take some practice, but it is that key ingredient. Once you get the hang of forgiving, it feels beautiful.
Number 8 is to laugh together as much as possible.
So
That's a big one too. I in the beginning of our marriage, I was really bad. Like I would take offense when you would want to laugh at me in a good way.
Yes.
You weren't even being mean. You were just wanting to laugh at the situation. And I had to learn to take myself less seriously and learn to laugh together. And that's been a huge, it's been a huge blessing in our marriage.
So in between saying I love you,
Yeah.
just laugh. A lot. As much as
I love you.
laugh
Anyway.
and say I love you. Number 9, this is a lifelong one. Assume the best and give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's a phrase we use quite a bit, but benefit of the doubt, right? There is doubt. I have a moment going, oh, I don't know what he meant by that. I don't know why he did that. I do not know why. And the minute you have a question come up, if I don't know why he said that, you're doubt, you go, well, it must have been against me. It must have been because he was plotting against me or not want the best for me. And you assume the worst about someone and create a bigger problem than just saying, maybe I'll assume the best.
And assuming the best does take intentionality, because if we don't be intentional in assuming the best, our brains will run away with the lies and with the
I want you to assume the best about me. I mean, that's a for sure, right? I don't want you to be treated that way. Number 10, Joe?
Yeah, number 10 is grow in empathy for each other's hurts. And this takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And that goes back to number 4, tell them. They won't know unless you tell them. So we have to share our hurts, and then we have to grow in empathy for our hurts or about our hurts.
So maybe number 11 was off my order, but tell each other when you were hurt. And this is so silly. I do feel like it's silly sometimes, but back to reading each other's minds. Well, he should know I was hurt. And I feel like, no, you know what? I really had to tell you that hurt me if I want to resolve an issue or want you to say you're sorry. And I know I'm guilty as well of going, oh, I didn't realize what I said or did was hurtful. And yes, sometimes you can like read a face, body language and all that, but really it's best if you just tell your spouse, this is what happened and this is why it hurt me.
Yeah.
And that's a good practice. And once you realize, hey, we can tell each other those things and offer the grace and forgiveness.
And I actually like the word share instead of tell.
Yeah.
Just share your hurt with each other. Number 12 is offer daily small acts of kindness, which has been huge in our marriage. And it helps help that benefit of the doubt side when we're being kind to one another.
And that's where you get a little bit creative or not creative. But small acts of kindness are really those 1-second things that makes the other person's day better, brings a smile to their face. Even that involves, the affection or greeting you at the door. Or for me, I put a note in your lunch or just something that says you're a kind person. And I think those are things that can't fade away. After many, many years of marriage, you have to kind of cultivate that to say, how can I be kind to my spouse today?
That's good. 13, pray for each other, especially when you are at odds. And that's been a big one. I don't remember who gave me that advice, but it was into our marriage, maybe 5-10 years. Said, when you're in conflict and things are escalating, take a deep breath and pray for your wife. That was the advice to me. And look her in the eye. Don't. And
Are
what
you
it does
looking in my eye while you're praying?
well, just separate the problem from the person,
yes.
right? And as I pray for you, and basically what I'm praying is, Lord, help me see what I can't see and help me see her the way you see her, because I'm really upset with her right now. And believe it or not, it does help. It makes a big difference. In the beginning, it felt really awkward. Like I didn't want to pray. I was like, oh God, I'm going to do this, but I don't want to. Now it's where my heart kind of goes when we're at odds with each other. I kind of go toward prayer.
And it's not that, the prayer of a spouse is more powerful than a stranger, but I do believe that we have a place in each other's lives that we know their struggles and their weaknesses more intimately than maybe somebody else, to be able to even bring those things to God to say, I know where he's struggling and I know how he's doing in a different way. So I do feel like there is a different kind of power in how we pray. And then, of course, as a spouse or as a wife, it helped me to grow in that empathy and compassion as well. When I can, plead for you on behalf of, to God for you and say, okay, help me to grow in compassion for these areas that he's struggling.
So number 14 is share your stories with each other. And I think that's really big too, because it helps me understand you better, especially the way that you share your story and the emphasis of what you put your emphasis on and what was important to you in that story. But also it helps me really get to know you. And in that discovering mode, 27 years in, I still occasionally will hear a story that you haven't shared before.
I think, even people who've known each other their whole lives, there's always an element of going, I never told you this story or a current story. And we did a whole podcast on stories, but I think to continually be part of each other's stories, because we are weaving our own story together as well. And I love the fact that we've been able to share our stories with each other. And again, I think I have a few more I haven't told you.
Yeah. It's kind of like when you have a favorite artist and then they haven't released an album in a while, and then you find something old that you didn't know existed. And you're like, whoa. So tell each other your stories for sure.
Okay, 15. Say please and thank you.
So you're saying manners still count.
You're never so intimate or close with somebody that you can't say please. And there's throughout our regular everyday life, there's so many things we are kind of giving little orders to each other. Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this for me? Do that for me. And if that's just regular everyday life, and the please just kind of says, hey, I want to be kind. And then the thank you is even more important.
Yeah.
No one ever gets tired of being thanked.
Right, especially when they think you didn't recognize the kind gesture that you did. When you hear a thank you, you're like, oh, you noticed that.
Over and above thank yous and please always matter. It matters to me. I love when you say please to me, and I love when you say thank you. It's nothing fancy. It's no crazy, newfangled marriage tip. It's just like what you learned when you were 3 years old. Say please and thank you, and I think it helps grow our relationship in a healthy way.
Yeah, so number 16 is check in on each other. And that's another big one, because we can assume each other's okay. We can assume you're doing fine because you're not cranky or you seem okay, or but just to say, hey, are you okay? And are we okay? I think that's been huge for our marriage.
Some kind of regular check-in, and it doesn't have to be a formal thing, but this idea that we're not going to let too much time going by. We're not going to let too much space here to say, I love it too, as my husband, as you are my husband, someone close to me like that, who's always saying, hey, I'm keeping an eye on you. I'm aware of where you're at. Are you okay? Because there's lots of times I'm not. And I love knowing that you're aware of that if I'm not okay, you're going to catch it.
Yeah.
And that's a gift we have to give to each other.
And what's cool is because we've made a habit of that throughout our marriage, I recognize the signs. There are certain things that you do. I go, okay, she's dealing with a little bit of anxiety today, or something's going on. And then I can approach you with that and say, hey, are you okay? And it really makes you, I think it takes the edge off for you as well, just to know that someone noticed
someone's
that
checking
you're not
on you.
Quite doing so well. Yeah.
Even there's no real problem, real answer, just someone's checking in on you. I love that we can do that for each other. So 17, we're moving through this. Make your marriage a priority. Now, we hear that a lot, and it sounds fantastic, but what does that actually mean? And for me, it just means time. Time. Your marriage needs some kind of time. It just needs, and there's 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. And what that number is different for each couple, but it's like somewhere along the way, we have to have time together.
The old thing, you get out what you put in, right? So the investment does pay off in big ways, but time is something you can't shortcut. You just can't shortcut it.
Yep. So more time is better, in my opinion. And I love that we have so much time together. Sometimes we have to make the time because we don't have the time. That's more difficult sometimes.
And I think that's part of the ebb and flow or the equity that we build in our marriage. We spend time when we can, and then in those seasons where time it just isn't there, we're okay. We can pull from the reserves.
Absolutely.
But if our whole marriage is built on not enough time, that begins to be we start building for what we do, or we start pulling for what we don't have.
Exactly. It's like
that's not healthy either.
Debt.
So number 18 is to celebrate each other and make a big deal about our successes. Be each other's biggest fan.
That's been fun.
And it's been a lot of fun. And I think you have been much better at this over the course of our marriage. I'm learning, but you've been really good at this. And one thing comes to mind, one particular instance, I had won a big national award and I just didn't think there was a big deal about it. And the award ceremony, I think, was in Nashville at the time, and you were home with the kids, and I called you, and I was like, it was kind of that last thing I said at the end of our conversation. Oh, by the way, I won this award today. And you went absolutely crazy, just so excited and celebrating. And it was in that moment that it just made it so real and it made it exciting. And it was like, okay, this is really cool. This does mean something. So I think being able to celebrate each other is a huge thing.
Well, those wins are more fun with someone else. I think we did a podcast on this one too. I'll start to lose track of all the numbers we have done. Look at our episode, our list of episodes. You'll find it somewhere in there. But really, say I am going to be my husband's biggest fan. Just president of the fan club.
Yeah.
And when you're that way with me as well, that's just the best feeling in the world, to celebrate each other. And again, successes are not even necessarily like the awards or the award show. We're talking about, there was a stain in the carpet and I got it out.
Yes, that's right.
Like, please,
or the kids were throwing up and I stayed up with them all night.
Cleaned it up.
Right?
I mean, I cannot believe you got the stain out of that carpet. You rock. I'm like, yeah, I do. Get the stain out of that carpet. Like, there's just some moments.
This dinner is amazing.
Because
what a great
no
job,
one else in the world will ever know what I had to do to get to this point. So all things can be celebrated if it's worth celebrating. So,
and it is worth celebrating.
Yes. Whatever it is you want celebrated, like go all out and celebrate for whatever things that those are. Number 19. I think this is another big one we haven't talked about a whole lot, but being in community with other Christian couples too. So like that obviously encompasses church attendance or, your small groups or your activities. The idea going, we're not doing this alone. We need other couples around us, maybe some that are ahead of the game, some that are behind us, some that are with us. But I think that community, as you grow your marriage, and we've done that when we've done small group marriage ministry, how impactful that's been to be doing marriage with other Christian couples.
It's been absolutely huge. And like you said, there's always value in having someone a little bit further down the road and someone a little bit behind you so that you can help, but you can also be helped. And then when things do get complicated or get difficult, challenges arise, it's always nice to have others around you who can help lift some of that weight. Number 20 is let the other person be right. You're right. That is one of the harder things in life to say.
The title that we did in episode 19 or 20 or 21 was You May Be Right. So if you have to give a warm up, you need training wheels, just say you may be right. And then as you get to be a stronger biker, you're like, actually, you're right. It's an amazing thing to say. You just have to practice saying it. You're right. See, now I've been here long enough, I can say it.
Well,
I'm right.
It's funny because
but for a few
I
years,
know this is a cultural thing because it's a hard thing for everybody because anytime you hear someone say you're right, you'll hear the other person say, wait a minute, can you repeat that? Because it's not something we hear very often.
Hearing it.
But it's really good to hear. You know what? I think you're right. You are right. And it's something that just softens everything. And it's really amazing.
So
now,
number
if you're
21,
before you go on, if you're really wrong, do I have to say you're right?
I don't know. Top 21, another episode, is own up to your own faults and say, I was wrong. So just
I think almost more important. Should have been 20 and the other one should have been 21.
I was wrong. You are right. And so, again, there was times in our marriage that I don't think that word came out very often. It was maybe whispered.
I think it was you're wrong and I'm right is what came out.
It was like whispered as you're half going to bed. Like, I was wrong.
Yeah, I was wrong.
Versus, and again, the more we say it, the easier it is to say.
There's a lot. Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world to say. I was wrong. But that goes back to earlier, be the first to say I'm sorry and ask for forgiveness, right?
22, Now, my tip was find a new way to compliment each other each day. But you thought that each day was a bit overkill.
Yeah. When I first saw the list, it said find new ways to compliment each other every day. And I thought that sounds like a really good thing to aim after. But it also feels a little overwhelming.
I'm not that creative.
Like, I can compliment you every day. That wasn't it. You said find new ways to compliment you.
I will meet you halfway.
So I have no problem. I think we should compliment each other every day. Absolutely, without fail, compliment your spouse every day. Finding new ways to compliment them every day. There's 365 days a year. There are 27 years in our marriage. Do you know how many times creatively I'd have? So I changed it to this. Find new ways to compliment each other regularly.
Okay, so we go back to number 20, which is, you're right. Number 21, I was wrong. See, I'm a creative.
Yes.
I come up with new episode titles. I'm like, I can think of a new way to compliment Joe every day.
Okay.
This is going to be our challenge this year.
Okay, that's going to be our challenge.
Every day, I'm going to think of a new compliment for you.
But what I want first,
See, I have a
this
thesaurus.
doesn't count leap years. There have been 9,855 days in our marriage. So
Okay.
I need you to list for me
I have a thesaurus at home,
9,855
so I'll be
ways.
like looking up the word amazing. I'll just say you're amazing, you're incredible,
Okay.
you're strong, you're cute, you're handsome, you're gorgeous.
Wow.
I'm gonna do this. The 365
this is
day
going
challenge.
to be a very fun year for me. Do I have to do the same?
would be
I'll
nice.
try. Okay,
Okay,
anyway,
so-
find ways to compliment each other every day. I am totally in agreement.
23. Bring your offenses and your annoyances to God first, and we will be offended. You will be annoyed. But bring it to God first. It's like your little pre-meeting meeting. Like, before I bring this up to my husband or wife, I first need to figure out where I'm at, why I'm upset. Is it actually I'm wrong and he's right? Or do I need to first soften my heart before I bring this up? So I think we want to first snap right away when we're offended and saying, okay, ask God first, why am I offended? Why am I hurt? Why am I annoyed? How do I approach this with my husband?
That's
First
great.
step.
Yep.
First step.
So number 24, this is one that your parents, I have to give them credit. And they mentioned it in episode 50. It was one of the big things they mentioned when they talked about the success of 50 years of marriage. But this is something I learned from watching them before you and I were even married, Tara. And then I'm guessing you picked it up from them as well. This probably should have been number one, because this is a huge one. Yes, putting
pick.
God first should be number one. Okay, it's hard to figure out where the rank is. But
You're right.
only talk well of your spouse with others. Only talk well about your spouse when you're talking to others. Don't talk bad about them. And I had only seen it displayed the other way until I met your parents. And I never heard your dad say, to this day, I've never heard your dad say anything negative about your wife, except maybe she
my wife?
lost this, or about his wife. I'm so sorry. I've never heard your dad say anything negative about his wife.
Or my wife.
Or your wife. But seriously, nothing, or vice versa. They talk so highly of
And
each
they do
other.
get annoyed and offended with each other. Like, they're still very human, and they very much have their own flaws and faults. But it's just that level of honor,
Yeah.
of always being honorable. And it's so beautiful to receive that, and it's so beautiful to see.
But we asked them, in that episode 50, what is a contributing factor?
Right, to a successful marriage.
And that was one of the very first and right off the top things that they said is do not talk poorly
Don't
about
dish
your
on your
spouse.
husband or wife both ways. And I think they learned that from seeing it happen among their peer groups and seeing the destruction that it caused.
And if that's something that's been a part of your marriage, you have to go back and tell your spouse you're sorry, and then make a decision from here forward to say, I'm not doing that.
So number 25, we're getting to the end, develop common interests and activities you both enjoy.
yeah.
And we've gotten better over the years of keeping those things, saying, hey, if we're going to be married, we have to enjoy some things together that we say we're both excited to do this.
And I think we both have stretched in this area where I do things I never dreamed I'd be doing. Anyway.
And so some of that is the beginning, some of that's developed over time. So it's not like you have to figure that all out the first year of marriage.
And then
Just over time.
Yeah, I discovered some of the things that I didn't really want to do. I found are really fun.
Yeah,
so they're
so it
really
all
exciting.
works.
Okay, so number 26, we're getting to the end. Grow as an individual. If you can grow yourself, if I can become a better me, then my marriage is going to be better.
And it go back to the idea of a better marriage means, my husband gets better. Maybe that's true. But to say, hey, you know what? I'm responsible for me. I'm responsible for how I behave and how I think and how I enter this marriage. And if I can work on that, that will contribute to the health of our marriage.
And when we did re-engage marriage,
Marriage ministry.
Marriage ministry. Thank you. Couldn't think of the word ministry. You're right. When we did Re-Engage Marriage Ministry, one of the big things that's taught in that is to draw a circle around yourself and then work on everybody in that circle.
That's right.
And if I can improve the person in that circle, then I'm going to improve our marriage.
Well, and I once saw, I think we talked about this somewhere in there, but the idea that too, if I'm working on my own junk and improving and like upping my game, that your spouse sees that too and goes, okay, if they can change, that's pretty impressive. Like, okay, we both can change. It is like an inspirational type of thing, right? When someone like shares their weight loss journey, like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it too. No, 27, here we go. We made it to the end of our list. Affirm and validate each other's ideas.
Wow, that's a great idea.
And you did that this whole episode. I was giving you all my ideas and you kept saying that's
yeah,
a good
the only
one.
one I didn't really agree with was the new compliment every single day. No, I think, and that was episode 2, right?
Compliment every single day.
We have thousands and thousands.
I think I'm taking the challenge on that.
Okay, that's excellent. So that's a great idea, was episode number 2. And that was a big one for us.
It's kind of where we landed, yeah.
It's funny because looking back on that to validate each other, and their ideas, I really didn't realize that I was so invalidating, and vice versa, right? Our knee-jerk reaction was, that won't work. That won't work. Instead of saying that's a great idea. And it's funny how just these simple things really become revolutionary. And for our marriage, it really changed the whole trajectory of our marriage.
I feel like if we hadn't really started to learn that way of thinking, then we wouldn't even be able to do a podcast, because I'd say, hey, hun, let's do this. And it's like, that won't work. And we'd be stuck like planning our podcast and would never even get there because we'd be like, well, that won't work. Well, that won't work. And part of the reason we're still here after how many episodes is willing to say, that's a great idea, even if it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like my do compliment every day. You didn't say that won't work, but you could have.
But I just changed every day to regularly. I think that's a little bit easier and less overwhelming.
It's a good idea.
Yes.
Let me ask you how that's going to work.
So we're grateful that you're still hanging out with us. 27 ideas that have helped make our marriage better, things that we've been able to do and things that we aspire to do. But we'd love to hear from you. What are some tips that you have learned through your marriage or were given when you first got married that maybe weren't on this list?
What would you tell a newlywed couple who's about to cross the line of matrimony?
Yeah.
What's that one thing that stuck with you that helped change your marriage? Because I don't expect anyone to remember all 27 things, but maybe one thing gets stuck and it makes a difference.
You can email us, Tara, T-A-R-A, at behindoursmiles.com. We appreciate that very much. We do appreciate your 5-star rating as well. We appreciate your review.
And come find us on Facebook or on Instagram at Behind Our Smiles Pod. We'd love to see you there.
And if you are celebrating an anniversary this month or
it's June.
This season, happy anniversary. I do hope it's your best and most wonderful anniversary yet.
It will be. Happy anniversary, Joe.
Yes, a happy anniversary. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you again next week.
Behind Our Smiles is a Wow God production, a ministry of the University of Northwestern St. Paul. Discover more at wowgod.com.